Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast Postgame show. If you are staying up late, I appreciate you guys. It's around almost midnight. I am 10 minutes late. I will apologize for that. I did see a really funny comment from Scrappy Hoop saying that I'm late for work. Yeah, I'm late for work because I didn't know when to schedule this game. I don't think we've done a 9 o'clock game this season. If we have, I've completely forgot about it. But these West Coast trips, these podcasts, not only tonight, but going into next week are probably going to be 1, 2 in the morning. If you guys want to stay up with me and talk about the games all next week, you guys are goated for that. But I do want to get into this game. If you are new here, what we do is we talk about the game. We go through the quarters. I do take some notes during the games, some key points I want to go over. And then after I'm done with that, what we do is we open up the show to questions, comments, concerns, just overall thoughts with tonight's game. But let's get into your Detroit Pistons versus the Phoenix Suns. So some first quarter notes that I took was Jaden Ivey's back. Jaden Ivey was out for 2 games, knee inflammation, right knee inflammation. He came back and looked great. I think he needed a couple of days off to get that knee right. I think a lot of us last week, we were kind of talking like, is this a slump for Jaden Ivey? Like, what's going on with Jaden Ivey? It looks like the knee was bothering him because that was probably the best basketball I've seen out of Jaden Ivey this season. I know there have been several games this season of where he's just really distributed the ball, scored the basketball, and just defended his ass off. I thought this was a really good game for him. And Jalen Duren, I do want to give Jalen Duren credit. He played really, really well around the basket. I think he had like 4 or 5 lobs tonight. Caden, Jaden were really looking to get him going early, and you kind of saw the body language from him. He was locked in, he was engaged on both ends of the court. So that's something that I do want to give Jalen Duren some credit. I think a game like this is very much needed, just for his overall confidence, I believe. But really liked what I saw to Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey to start the first, and the pace we played. Now, given the game that we had against Utah, where we almost gave up 50 points, the Pistons came out aggressive. The Pistons came out to score the basketball. And they dropped over 41 points on the Phoenix Suns, and they shot a very good percentage in the first. Just going to fire off some numbers for you guys right now. So they shot 17 out of 27 from the field, 6 out of 10 from 3, and 11 assists, which you have 11 assists in the first quarter, you're doing something right. Jaden Ivey ended the first quarter with 10 points. So did Jalen Duren. Cade had 5 points and 5 assists. But the Pistons end the first quarter 41-26 Phoenix. Going into the second quarter, Jaden Ivey was just kind of finding a rhythm of where he was going to score the basketball and facilitate. And I thought he did a really, really good job of that tonight. Had 8 assists. Ron Holland, I thought, had bright spots throughout the game. He had a play where he went coast to coast. There was a couple plays throughout the game where he was scrapping for loose balls. Getting on the floor with guys like Grayson Allen and Ryan Dunn, and even Mason Plumlee and Yusuf Nurkic. Really like what I saw to Ron Holland, just the energy that he brings on a night-to-night basis. But to kind of like end the second quarter, Phoenix went on the run, as I did expect them to do, with Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant. They end the second quarter on a 12-2 run, and Pistons go into halftime with a 64-59 lead. Coming out of halftime, the Pistons knew that if they really wanted to win this game, they had to get more good looks, move the basketball like they were in the first quarter and the second to an extent. And that's what Jaden Ivey really did. They were really just facilitating. When you have your backcourt just pass the way they pass the basketball, like this backcourt tonight had over 20 assists between Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. And they were just looking for the open man, whether that was Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, Simone Fontecchio, who I thought had a pretty good game tonight. They were just, finding the open man from three, and I really like the facilitation and the ball movement from both of them tonight. Suns obviously surged back. It felt like every time I looked at the scoreboard with this game, you guys, it was like a 5-6 point game. They got it down to 5 points at the 4:07 mark. Bench comes in, regains the momentum, and they end the third quarter 103-94 to have a nice little 9 point lead going into the fourth. And when we talk about Kevin Durant is like one of the best basketball players that I've watched throughout just my childhood growing up. He's just such a good player. It's so hard to stop him from scoring the basketball. I mean, he can get to any spot on the floor. He kept it close. Him and Cade kind of had a back and forth. Cade had several moments on KD tonight. He had a step back three on Kevin Durant in the second half of the game. Then he had a really clutch 3-point shot where KD kind of gambled on it. Cade hit a three. Malik Beasley made some timely threes as well in the fourth quarter. But the Detroit Pistons win this basketball game 133-125. This was such a huge win for them. Obviously, we had the Miami game this week, which was just pure, utter chaos. Tim Hardaway Jr. saved the Pistons' ass that game. We had the Jazz game this week, which a lot of you thought, looking at Utah, that would be a very easy win. And obviously it was not. The Pistons did lose that. But to end the week 2-1, to beat Phoenix and to beat Miami, big confidence booster. You have a West Coast trip coming up. Anytime you can end the week, winning 66% of your games, pretty good. They got their 12th win of the season. This team is very inconsistent at times, but when they play well, it's a pretty good brand of basketball, I do believe. I do want to open up the show to questions, comments, overall thoughts. What did you think of tonight's game? We're just going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after I kind of just go through these comments and questions that we're going to talk about for the remainder of this podcast. We'll be right back, you guys. Okay, you guys, we are back. I want to go through some of the comments and questions that you guys left during that commercial break. Before we even get into the comments and questions, I want to give a shout out to Johnny. Johnny, I appreciate you, man. You did not have to donate $10 in a super chat. I appreciate it, man. Happy holidays to each and every one of you that are watching live right now. I know as we do get closer to Christmas and the new year, whatever you celebrate. I celebrate Christmas over here, but whether it's whatever you celebrate, I don't want to offend anybody, but Johnny, appreciate you, man. You're the GOAT. But I do want to get to one of the questions that you did have for the podcast. And it says probably one of the best offensive games for during the season. I think he's starting to understand how to get touches and buckets within the actual offense. Now he needs to do this every night. I tend to agree with your assessment of just Jalen Duren, especially tonight. Like arguably one of his best offensive games. I mean, he had 10 points to end the first quarter. And usually that's his stat line for the entire game. So Jalen Duren tonight had 17 points and 11 rebounds, shot a perfect 7 for 7 from the field. And I think he has the ability to give you a good 13 to 14 points when he's locked in defensively. He's a lob threat. He's a rim runner. Has like little baby hooks around like 5 feet, like around the basket. Obviously, we know that he's not a perimeter shooter. Mid-range shot, I think, is something that maybe he could work on this offseason, possibly. Something that, you see it late in shot clocks, but it's not there yet. But I do agree with you. I think he's starting to understand where to, find his spots so he can be involved offensively. Because when you see Jalen Duren involved offensively, the body language, he seemed happy out there. He was giving effort defensively. Not every possession, but it was more consistent throughout the game. I don't expect him to be locked in every possession on every game. And I think that's a little bit unrealistic for us to kind of hold him to. But overall, I thought he had a really good game. 17 points, double-double, didn't miss from the field. But when he's locked in, he's a pretty good basketball player. It's the consistency with him right now that I think as fans, it just has us wanting more because we can go back to this game and say the Phoenix game, that's the type of Jalen Duren that I want to see each and every night. But thank you for the comment, Johnny, and happy holidays to you, brother. I have a comment from Ms. I apologize if we're just gonna call you Ms. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it at midnight right now. I'm not on 3 hours sleep. But the comment is about Cade Cunningham. He said, Cade Cunningham, that is all. I want to show some love to every player tonight. Though everyone was locked in and played their roles, even Tobias, yes, he's on a big money, but plays a good role. I agree. When you kind of look at just the game tonight, I think you had over 6 or 7 players in double figures. The Rock was moving. Everyone played their role. When you have, everybody collectively doing what they're supposed to do, this is a team that can, put points up on you. And Phoenix isn't really known as a good defensive team, but they have bucket getters like KD and Bradley Beal. Obviously, Devin Booker wasn't playing tonight; he was on the bench. But it's a good basketball team. They're 12-13 now after the loss tonight. But I do agree with you, man. When everyone's locked in, when everyone's playing their roles, scoring the basketball, communicating defensively, this is a fun basketball team to watch, and it's just they're going to be really inconsistent this year, and I think that's what's going to make this team very, very frustrating to watch throughout the season. But nights like tonight make worth staying up and doing these post-game podcasts for you guys. We have a comment about Jaden Ivey from Logan. He said, Ivy has been banged up lately. Looked like he had his feet under him tonight. Yeah. See, I did not know that he was dealing with like knee soreness whatsoever because it wasn't on the injury report. And, sometimes, teams don't put every little nagging injury unless they're going to be out or questionable or, game time decisions, right? But he looked really under control, especially in the first quarter. Coming into the game and making sure that the lead didn't completely go away. I felt like tonight was a night where they really could not stay in front of him. They did not have a defender that was fast enough to stay in front of Jaden Ivey. And I think some of the passes and the reads he made, the processing, There was one play where he drove to the lane. I think it might have been in the third or fourth quarter. Um, and he decided to kick it out to a Malik Beasley open in the corner for three. Like, he's starting to develop the ability to, pass the basketball and make the right basketball play. And I think sometimes we forget that, Jaden Ivey's only going into his third season. And there's still a lot of room for him to grow. I thought he did all the little things tonight to really help the Pistons win. But a lot of these guys on this team, like they're very young. Like, we don't really, all the guys that we drafted, we don't really have a lot of guys that are like, 25, 26 years old. I think sometimes we forget how young this basketball team is. And we really, sometimes we come on here and we're pissed with the result because it's a loss, or, maybe upset that we lost a close game and we didn't really think it's sustainable. But overall, I've really liked what I've seen out of Jaden Ivey throughout the season, even with the little slump that he did have, going into last week. I have a comment from Dante. Shout out to Dante. Dante says, Tobias Beasley and Tim Hardaway played like vets and kept us composed. Great team win. When you get what you received from your veterans, Tobias, Beasley, Hardaway, they stepped up. This could be a basketball team that competes in the play-in tournament, competes around that 10 to 8 seed. There have been games this year where Tim Hardaway Jr. lays an egg. Tobias Harris lays an egg. I feel like Malik Beasley, as a veteran, has probably been one of the most consistent veterans on this basketball team throughout the season. I can maybe count 2 or 3 games where Malik Beasley just had a rough shooting night. But to your point, Dante, they played like vets. They kept us composed. And that's why we won the basketball game. Yeah, obviously, Cade had a big game. So did Jalen Durden and Jaden Ivey. But, having veterans on this team to kind of just lead them and going through the motions throughout the game, I think is so huge and crucial. And all these vets played a big part in the win tonight, in my opinion, anyways. So we have a comment from Thugway Joe POG. Pistons insiders called Ivy a fourth option on this team. Ridiculous. Well, I don't know which Pistons insider said he was a fourth option. Now, I will say, I've had people come on my podcast, Thugway, and say that Jaden Ivey's a third option, maybe. Maybe he's not good enough to be a second option, which, I mean, like, that's their opinion. I honestly disagreed with it because I think it's kind of, early to kind of throw out those narratives and those opinions when we're not even a full 30 games into the season. And you kind of have to understand, like, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey have not really played a lot of basketball games together. They're still growing. They're still developing, learning each other. The chemistry is, I think you're seeing, like, games like tonight really show you, like, how good this backcourt could be. When you have Cade scoring the basketball, facilitating the basketball, defending, he's going to be a scary good player. All-star, if I do say myself. If you guys haven't voted for Cade, or if you didn't vote for Cade today, it was triple the amount of votes. I voted for Cade, and I made a burner account to vote for Cade, so we got like 6 times the votes for me today. But yeah, Cade looks good. Ivy looks good too. It's just, the inconsistencies with him at times, I think, has people questioning whether or not he can be that number 2 option next to Cade, which I think everyone is entitled to their opinion. I'm never going to tell fans how to fan. But I think it's a little early to say he's going to be a fourth option. I don't really think Jaden Ivey's a fourth option on this team. I'll let the other Pistons podcast and reporters, say whether or not he's a third or fourth option. But I think Jaden Ivey looked like a second option tonight next to Cade Cunningham, in my opinion. Have a no, Case Cracked. You didn't have to do that, man. I appreciate you. Super chat from Case Cracked. Merry Christmas, Ivy. Play like this, please. Yeah, man. Like, when you get Jaden Ivey playing the way he played, man, like, you're getting a guy that can score at all three levels, get to the basket at will. Like his playmaking tonight, I was really, really impressed um, with just the way he was like finding his teammates, finding Duran, finding Malik, finding Tobias. Like really, really liked what I saw out of Jaden Ivey tonight. Um, Devin Booker's on the sitting on the wrong bench. Yeah, man, that's like a pipe dream with me. Like, oh, so I know he's from the Michigan area. Like, I know that. I know we're going completely off topic on this podcast, but you guys let me know if I'm crazy or not. It feels like every time we play the Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker is always wearing a Detroit Tigers hat or a Detroit Red Wings hat. Like, I feel like low key he's trolling the Pistons like every time we play and he's sitting on the bench or a pregame warm up. Like I believe it was a preseason game. It might have been last season or this season where he went to the Lions game, had a Lions jersey, and took a picture with Isaiah Thomas, and then suited up and played the Pistons at LCA. Like I know, Devin is from the Michigan area, but I feel like he just trolls us with all the Detroit gear he's always wearing. But definitely love D-Book. Maybe 2028 when his contract's up, he wants to come back home and push for a championship. If he doesn't win one in Phoenix, you never know. You never really know. Do you think Ivy's mid play the last 2 weeks was from him not resting his knee after he originally hurt it? I'm not sure. I know I was scrolling on Twitter and someone had cited that I can't remember who it was from, so I do apologize. Someone had cited that he was dealing with some knee pain, but I don't know if that was like really affecting his performance. Obviously, the energy in which he played tonight, maybe it was, but I don't want to give you guys any false information because I just don't know. Um, but maybe it was affecting his play, Chili. I'm not really entirely sure. Get to a couple more comments and questions with you guys, and I'll probably wrap this podcast up. Um, honestly, like I've really really liked what I've seen. Just out of everyone tonight. I know some people wanted to talk about Cade Cunningham a little bit. I'm trying to find the comment and I can't find it for whatever reason, and it's kind of annoying me. But uh, Michigan Made says Cade's a certified all-star. His assist numbers have been crazy. So I do want to say this with the assist numbers with Cade. I think Cade is finally like the game is slowing down for Cade Cunningham, Michigan Made. Like in the beginning of the season, I know a lot of us were like really, really harping on the turnovers and like the what's the word I'm looking for? Like rush passes or bad turnovers. But I feel like over the last, 2.5 weeks, like the game is really slowed down for him. Like some of the reads he's making, no look passes, and a no look lob to Asar, just setting up his teammates. I feel like just as a facilitator and just kind of like being the point guard of the team, um, I feel like most nights, like Kate could easily average, 10 assists a game. And like I know he's probably going to have a 20 assist night. I think his career high is 18, which I think he just broke last week. But just the way he's just facilitating, dissecting, getting to his spots, finding his teammates, seems like the game has just really slowed down for him over maybe the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's definitely picking up another gear. Obviously, I think a lot of us really want him to make an all-star team. I think if you keep winning basketball games, you're going to have to force uh, just the voters to vote for him. And I think, especially tonight, you went up against Kevin Durant toe to toe with a guy that is one of the best scorers in the game. You're going to get a lot of respect from voters. in my opinion. He went head to head with Jimmy Butler this week and got a dub, even though it was an ugly win. They still got the win. I think Cade, it would not surprise me if he does make an all-star team. The Pistons just have to, keep this pace up of, winning basketball games. I believe when Blake made it, he was 26. Our record was 26-30, and Blake was kind of putting up similar numbers to what Cade Cunningham was. But it'll be really interesting to see if he does make it, because I think he deserves it. I really do, especially the way he's been playing this season. And we've seen how impactful Cade is on this team, because when he was out for a couple of games with that hip injury he had, the team looked completely lost. But he's looking like that franchise player that you extended this summer. He's looking like a guy that could easily get you, a good 26 and 10 a night. Just the way he's processing the game, getting to his spots, playing much better defense this season. I'm really, impressed with Cade. We'll do one more question. And it was from Kiki. Asar Thompson has superstar potential. Thoughts? Asar has a lot of potential. Superstar potential, I don't know if I would use the word superstar, but if he develops a jump shot, I think then you could say, yeah, he has superstar potential. Defensively, I think you love what you get out of Asar, athleticism, the way he runs the floor. But I think the thing with Asar that would give him that superstar potential is developing a three-point shot, developing a mid-range shot, getting a tighter handle. I think when you're talking about Asar, he definitely has all the tools in the makeup to be, a prototypical 3-4 in the NBA, like a small forward through power forward. I'm glad that he's actually back on the basketball court, and being out for so long with blood clots, I'm sure it was really hard on him, but I don't know if I would say superstar potential. He does have potential, but I think if I would come up here and say superstar potential when he hasn't really developed the jump shot yet, it would kind of probably just sound like I'm sipping the Kool-Aid a little bit. But I love Asar. I love what he brings to this team. Like sneakily, it seems like every game, Cade's throwing him a lob. If we make the play-in, do we lose this year's draft pick? This comes from Drew. I know it's top 13 protected, so this is like just a technicality. So if the Pistons were to make the play-in, and let's say our draft pick is like sitting like around 10 to 12, we could still keep it. They would have to probably be like around an 8 or 7 seed to lose it. And I know we've kind of talked about, should we just win games and screw the draft pick this year so we can make future trades with that draft pick and just let Minnesota have it? I'm kind of on the fence with it, but I think they can make the play-in and still keep it. It just kind of depends like where that draft pick does fall. As long as it's, under, a top 13 protection, the Pistons can still keep the draft pick. Atlanta was a play-in and they got first from Chile. That is true. But it just kind of depends like where we're at in the standings. Like, let's just say hypothetically, this team wins like 35 games. They probably lose it, but it also depends on like the Eastern Conference standings. It's kind of technical. We can kind of look at it. I can actually look at it right now to see where they're at. I'll just go on Tankathon because now you have me curious. This is a really good question, by the way. So currently the Pistons right now are at the 9 spot. So for them to get the 13, they would have to be at a sub 500 record at 14-13. Right now, Minnesota is tied for the 13th pick in the draft, which is going to Utah, but their overall record is 14-13. The Pistons are 12-17. So it's looking like the Pistons would have to be at least a couple games over 500 to lose that draft pick. So that's interesting. Maybe they can make the play in Chile. Maybe you're right, but just as I'm looking at it, because I think every year is different. I mean, you could possibly be above 500 and still keep it. It kind of just depends on the Eastern Conference standings. Okay, I'll do one more, Adam. I'll let you have the last one because I know you've commented a couple of times. Say we're 10th or 12th, and we get someone like I'm not even going to try to pronounce their last names, but a shot blocking big who can shoot threes. That would be huge. Um, yeah, I think you're right. If we're around the 10th, if we're around the 10th or the 12th pick, can we still possibly make the play in and get some playoff experience and we're able to get a prospect that can do that? I agree with you. It could be huge. But I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I mean, we're currently sitting at the ninth pick in the NBA draft. In terms of just like I could look at the playoff picture. This morning when I looked at it, I think we were kind of like sitting around that 10 seed. I apologize. This is terrible podcasting on my part, you guys, but now you guys have me looking at it. I should have this way more just prepared, just off the top of my head when I'm looking at standings. I'm gonna have to start doing that now. Now that the Pistons are just in the play-in talk. So yeah, right now they are 12 and 17, and they would have the 10 seed. The Bulls have the 9 seed at 13 and 16. Pacers have the 8 seed at 13 and 15, and the Hawks have the 7 seed at 14 and 15. So a 500 record gets you the 6 seed. That's crazy, man. The East is really weak this year. I knew the East was weak, but I didn't know it was that bad. Like that's absolutely crazy. Definitely think that this team should push for the play-in tournament. I think they have all the talent to do it this season, especially with the East being pretty weak. The bottom half of the East is pretty weak, but it'll be interesting to see like where this team goes in terms of competing, the trade deadline. Really, I'm getting nervous because we're getting closer to the trade deadline. Obviously, it does end in February. And we're gonna get into that tomorrow. We're having another podcast tomorrow, you guys, at 7. Having Pistons Jack on, which should be really fun. Haven't had him on the podcast one-on-one, had him on a roundtable, and I kind of felt bad because he really didn't get a chance to talk in almost a 3-hour podcast. But I guess when you do a podcast with 5 people, it's kind of hard to let everyone talk for as long as you possibly would want them. But we're gonna have Pistons Jack on tomorrow, the podcast. Kind of talk about trade rumors, reports, lineup changes, all that fun stuff. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm extremely tired. I'm probably not even making sense at 12:30 at night, but I wanted to stay up for this Pistons win. I do appreciate the super chats tonight from Case Cracked and Johnny. Appreciate both of you guys, and appreciate all 91 of you guys in the building tonight. I'll see you guys tomorrow, though, 7 p.m. with Pistons Jack. Should be a good podcast. Have a good night, you guys. Peace.